With Persona 3 Reload, Atlus has shown that they are moving towards that sweet $70 price tag. With the precedent set by Sony a few years ago, it really was only a matter of time before even smaller companies started following suit with this higher price tag on games. So, is this too much for a game? Or better yet, is this too much for Persona 3 Reload? A remake of an older title.
How did this... What's happened to me?
I guess starting from a business standpoint, the $70 price tag feels kind of overdue. It's been about a decade and a half since video games have gotten a price hike. In that time, games have gotten more expensive to make. It's not just money, it's time. Remember, back 20 years ago, a lot of developers could pump out multiple games within a year or two. Now, on average, a developer will release maybe one game every 3 to 4 years, and that's not even accounting for different teams working on different games. As an example, you could bring up Call of Duty, which that series releases a game almost every year, if not every year. And those games are worked on by different teams, hence the ability to kind of continuously release games each year. Also, they don't change much during each iteration, but that's really none of my business. In a consumer's shoes, we've been living in this great era where games in the 7th and 8th gens have costed the same, and generally speaking, quality has only gone up. Yes, you have your cash grabs here and there, but for the most part, those big games that are coming out are usually delivering on the quality of a $60 AAA game. But since this practice of $70 pricing has become normalized, and it's worse in a lot of other regions, we're now stuck with this potential of every game coming out costing that price. It hasn't happened yet, but in my opinion, it's bound to happen where the average, if not all games, start to cost $70, unless you're an indie or a smaller title.
Cash really does calm my nerves.
And I guess it's good to ask, does this create a problem? Well, for us, yes. The problem to me isn't that games are more expensive as a general thing, it's more that the pricing is often used in unjustifiable ways. I'm not going to pretend to understand what goes into developing a game like Call of Duty or FIFA or Madden, but you cannot tell me that when all of these publishers are still pricing their games at $60, that somehow the game that is essentially the same as the last one is ripe for a $70 price tag. I mean, it's not like the games that are still $60 are smaller titles. These are full-fledged AAA games. People still buy those games for $70, so I guess it doesn't really matter to the average person. However, again, this encourages the competition to up the prices of their games. If the best-selling games of the year out there are still the best-selling while being more expensive, then the same should hold true for other titles. Why would we price our game at $60 when this game that's essentially the same as the last one that came out last year is $70 and they're still doing just fine? In the end, it's a chain reaction that has given us many modern titles costing $70 and up. And I guess in some form, the responsibility at this point lies on us to decide if any games are worth that price tag. People in more fortunate situations will likely hand-wave the issue, while people with less money to spend will feel the greater urge to wait until games become cheaper.
Why not just give it up?
Now, I started this video off by talking about Persona 3 Reload. I think there are grounds for discussing whether this game should cost $70. Of course, that's not going to change anything in Atlus's mind. You have to keep in mind that this is mainly just a hypothetical fun video. It's not going to change anything at Atlus, it's not going to change the pricing. It's just a way to create discussion. So against the $70 argument, the basic gist of it is that this game is a remake, meaning there is easily less time being spent on multiple areas, from story writing to character designs. Persona 3 has all of these set in stone, to the point where changing a lot of it is kind of detrimental to recreating the experience. On top of that, there's a clear amount of dungeon design and area design that doesn't need to be done. The gameplay systems also don't need to be altered too much, just a little bit to keep the modernization going. The game itself isn't a full reimagining, it's a remake. Sure, it's got some added content and bits, but is that really enough to justify this game being more expensive than, let's say, Persona 5? Now, for the $70 argument, and to be clear here, I'm only arguing this because I think it's best to hear out both sides. My opinion is ultimately that this was a long time coming, and whether a game is $60 or $70, you choose where to spend your money. Would I prefer games stay at $60? Absolutely. But am I appalled that games are $70 now? Not really. Anyways, the main argument I make for this new price tag is that Persona 3 Reload is above and beyond what an average remake does. A large majority of remakes tend to play it by the books, sticking pretty close to the original. For older titles, it could mean adding voice acting and remastering audio quality, and for all, it means upping the visuals to be at least a one-to-one recreation using modern assets. But P3 Reload is kind of doing a lot more than that. In a visual sense, you can see the clear and apparent differences between P3 and Reload. I talk about it a lot more here, but in short, there's so much going into this visually that it isn't a simple one-to-one recreation. On top of that, we've gotten confirmation that the social links will all be voiced, and that the quantity of voice work in this game is higher than any of Atlus's other titles, which is insane, especially for a game like Persona, where there is so much dialogue. We're getting additional character episodes to expand characters who don't have social links, and new songs and remastered songs being added to the OST. Beyond that, it seems that the voice work is all being re-recorded. So, without a doubt, there is so much being brought to this experience. I think people would genuinely complain less if certain things were in the base game, but I can understand why they're not there. This is just my 2 cents.
My perception shapes the boundaries of my world.
Honestly, the hardest part about this is that at a base understanding, I feel like it is worth the $70. Reload isn't really overpriced. There's a clear level of passion and effort being funneled into this project. This isn't simply some cash grab either. You can argue that it having day 1 DLC is kind of stupid, but it also almost has zero impact on the game itself. The difficult part is that it's entirely possible Reload comes out and it's broken. It's very, very uncommon with JRPGs, at least in my experience, but it's still a possibility we have to acknowledge. I'm confident enough in this game to throw my money at Atlus, but I wholly understand why people are uncomfortable with this jump in pricing. You can do the comparison here, and yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, games like Street Fighter 6, Elden Ring, Armored Core, these are huge games that are still $60. They didn't up the price to $70. So you can let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things Persona, Atlus, and JRPG related. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
I hit the outer shell. I think I can break it if I focus my attention.